Hi there everyone, it's Russell. Welcome to the Reading Fabricator. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all reading lots of books. And today I'm going to talk about a non-fiction piece of work, one that is descriptive, informative, and overall just downright haunting. And that is Dead Mountain by Donnie Eichar. An untold story of the Dyatlov Pass incident, which, if you don't know, was a very bizarre thing that happened in the Soviet Union in the Ural Mountains in 1959, the early 1959, where 9 hikers just died. Something happened to them, and no one to this day has been able to figure out why. The tale of a bunch of university friends who were going on an expedition to get a grade 3 in hiking. Grade 3 is the highest rank you can get. It's basically makes you a master of it. They are currently grade 2. And going by the facts of this book, it seems that you get a lot of information on all these individual characters, including the lead expedition, the expedition leader Igor Dyatlov, of which the pass is named after. And it details through journal entries and through information given by Yuri Yudin, who was the only survivor of the 10, their process in going on this trek way up into the wilderness in the Ural Mountains, and what ended up befalling them. Now, Donnie Eichar, he didn't know about this back in 2010. It wasn't until then when he actually found out about it, and it intrigued him so much that he decided to put all his time and effort and resources and money into researching this thing and finding out what happened to them, including traveling to Russia and just talking to survivors, discussing with professors and with experts on the field, and then eventually retracing these hikers' steps on their expedition, retracing the expedition all the way up to where their tent was found, pitched, in which you could see photos online of how this ominous tent, which has remained pitched, but no one was inside it. And it just gets creepier and creepier the more you find out about what happened to them on that fateful night. It is no spoiler to say that they all die. It basically tells you at the start of the book anyway, and the rest of the book is him retracing the steps, discussing the investigation behind the finding of the bodies and what happened to them, and with the expedition of the hikers themselves. So there's 3 narratives going on here in very small interval chapters. So you'll have one chapter which is dedicated to Donnie and his research and his subsequent expedition to where the hikers eventually met their fate. Then the next chapter would be a discussion of the investigation team tracking the bodies down, including getting help from the local Muncie people. And then another chapter would come after that is the expedition itself, told through Yuri Yudin's recollections and through journal entries, of which they kept a lot of journal entries, so you're able to get a clear picture up until the final couple of days where the journal entries just stopped. Now, what ended up happening on that fateful night was that how these bodies were found, they were found a mile away from the campsite, and the campsite is on a slope, but it's not a significant slope. There couldn't be an avalanche or anything like that. They were found a mile away in various states of array. About 4 of them were found in sort of like a riverbed. Another 2 were found by a tree where obviously they tried to make a fire from kindling, and another 3 were found elsewhere, all within a mile of their tent. And so it's officially ruled that they die of hypothermia, but that's not the question. The question is, why did they leave their tent? Why did these expert hikers leave their tent? And it's a mystery that has been going on for over 60 years now, where people just up in arms about what happened to them. Could it have been an avalanche? Could it have been an escaped prisoner? Could the military have been involved? There's just so many theories out there talking about this, and each one seems to cancel the other one out. And that's what Donnie talks about in this book quite a lot, actually. He discusses all the theories that are presented, discusses how he thinks they are not accurate based on his own expedition to the location. And in particular, a really brilliant section where Donnie proposes his own theory, which I won't give it away here because I think you should read it and find out for yourself. But with this theory, he goes back to America and talks to some professors in the field to further elaborate on that theory. And what ends up happening is the final chapter of this book, he presents his theory along with various other pieces of information of what they think happened that day and fateful night. And he gives you a story of what he thinks happened to them that night in a very detailed, almost like fictional sense. So in a way, it's like a non-fiction, but it's also speculative fiction. It's a deeply haunting final chapter, and I was truly immersed in it. It's quite lengthy. It's probably the longest chapter in the book, but I was completely immersed in the way he described it. Donnie Eichar is quite a fantastic storyteller, and I love the way how the narrative intersperses with each chapter, giving off these different narratives. It really keeps you immersed in the book as a piece of non-fiction. And I must admit that when it comes to non-fiction, I tend to steer towards the memoirs like Oppenheimer and in particular Joan Didion's books. So this is new territory for me. It's something of which I do not approach, but I'm feeling more interest in that genre of writing in particular, especially this year. And I was always drawn to the Dyatlov Pass incident because even in Yuri Yudin's words, who has since died, but when he gives his interview with Donnie Eichar when they meet, and of which he seems to feel the sense of regret that's longing over him his entire life. You get a sense that there have been no answers, that all the speculation has just completely ruined the lives of all the families that were related to those that died during that night, of which most of them were university students, but one was a World War II veteran who actually joined them partway through the trip on the expedition. Another expedition fell through, so he joined them partway through and continued with them. And based on the camaraderie that you get through the journal entries and the photos that you see, he seemed to integrate himself into that party quite well. And with these journal entries, you really get a sense for just how friendly and musically ambitious, and in particular how smart these students were. I mean, they all came from the Polytechnic Institute. A lot of engineers and civil constructionists and geologists. I think Yuri Yudin was a geologist, and the reason he survived was because he pulled out a certain way through the trip due to rheumatism and just various health issues. And a lot of people have questioned why Yuri does this sort of thing if he has all these health issues, and the answer is that going on these hikes sort of puts vigor back in him. It reinvigorates his life. It gives him purpose. It makes him happy, and so you can't blame him for that. But the meetings that he has with Yuri, in particular the first interview they do, is quite unsettling. You can see it's really taken a toll on him. And in particular, one meeting which Donnie Eichar has with Tatiana, who was Igor Dyatlov's sister, who at the time of the interview, I think she was in her 60s. And seeing how she has gone and lived her life knowing what's happened to her brother. And I just found these sections of Donnie Eichar and his investigation to be probably the most appealing aspect of the book. So it's clear that this is a tale of obsession, a real tale of obsession, of one man's search to find an answer to something that many, many people have been unable to come to grips with. Even Yuri Yudin asked Donnie during one of their meetings, and he said it multiple times, was, "Don't you guys have any mysteries of your own in America?" And in a way, this is Russia's equivalent of the JFK assassination. I mean, there are so many conspiracies about what happened to them, and a lot of people point to the military being involved. I mean, there were other expeditions in the area at the time who pointed to these red orbs that were in the sky, and they thought it was like missile tests or something like that. But I think Donnie Eichar's theory is really interesting. Again, I won't spoil it, but it's something I've never thought of before, and it's truly a devastatingly horrific way to go if that's what happened to them. The reason I came upon this was due to a podcast called Astonishing Legends, and they discuss all these mysteries and urban legends in quite good detail, and they provide it in a sort of informative and also historical sense. So check out Astonishing Legends if you want. But I found out through them, and then I found out about the book by Donnie Eichar, and I went and read that. And I'm glad I did. I think there's something truly unsettling about the whole idea of it. And even if you look at the photos that are presented to it, it shows most of them being happy, but there's also just this ominous, unsettling feeling knowing what happened to them when you see these photos that were taken days before the events of the night happened to them. The narrative involving the investigation and the discovery of the bodies I found to be the least interesting aspect. But with the personal journal entries and the expedition led by Igor Dyatlov, there are just these many moments where you just come to really like these characters, and you grow affectionate towards these people, these real people who lived through this event. You get a sense for who they are as individuals, and they all get their own separate moments where you find out little bits about them. And in particular, before heading on their hiking trip, they take trains out to various stations and they go visit a school where they talk about what they do, and the school children are absolutely in love with them and in awe of them and want them to stay. In particular, Xena, who they wanted her to be the Cub Scout leader, basically, and where they go to like a forestry town, and there's this one guy there who's affectionately known as the Beard. He's got like a big gingerbread beard, who seems to be of high intelligence, and what they come to realize is that a lot of the people that work there are actually really smart people who love poetry, who love discussions, and who love music. And these hikers themselves are big fans of music. I mean, there's times where they just stay by the campfire, just playing the mandolin and singing songs. So yeah, you get a real sense of what these people are really like, and you forget that most of them, except for the World War II veteran, are actually quite young. They're all in the like ages from 19 through to the early 20s, whereas the World War II veteran was, I think, 38. And there's a lot of theories out there that point to him as being a reason as to what happened to them eventually. But keep in mind that he also did die as well. But the descriptions also of the Ural Mountains and of the final section where Donnie Eichar goes and stands at the spot where his guides think that the tent was pitched, and he squats down, does a 360 of the entire view, and just imagines what it was like to be there that night. He describes the temperature, the wind chills. He looks to the slopes to see if an avalanche is possible. He describes meeting the Mansi people, who have been described as some of the most friendliest people on earth. They helped out with the investigation and finding the bodies, so they obviously were ruled out quite quickly as suspects. But in the end, this is just a mystery book where unfortunately has no ending because no one knows what happened. But you get theories and you get speculations, and Donnie Eichar presents one hell of a good theory as to what happens to them, which all culminates again in that final chapter where he basically presents to you his story of what happened to them that night, which to me is an absolute highlight. It's one of the greatest reading moments I think I've come across this year. Really kept me invested, and I really liked it a lot. There's not much more I can say about the actual book itself, but it's a great piece of non-fiction. A great piece of non-fiction that will linger with me. It's a really interesting mystery. I've gone down many rabbit holes with this Dyatlov Pass incident, just looking at all the various theories that happens to it, and chances are you will too, because it gets weirder and weirder. As I said before, each theory cancels the other one out. In particular, what happened to the 4 people that were found by the riverbed who died of suspiciously violent circumstances. I mean, I think the actual cause of death was ruled as an unknown compelling force or an unnatural compelling force, something along those lines, which sounds very vague, but there's no other way to describe it. So if you're interested in a mystery that is unsolved, that a man who has become obsessed with the idea of it goes on an adventure of a lifetime to try and discuss it and propose his theories, then give this book a read, because it is short, but it gets to the point. It's well informative. It has 3 narratives going, so you'll always have your interest piqued, and chances are you'll probably come up with your own theories as to what happened. I know I did. I'm not going to give them off here because I'll go on for hours about what I think happened, but it's a damn fine read, and I'm glad I got involved in this sort of genre of non-fiction. It makes me want to go out and read even more non-fiction of this type, especially and including memoirs as well. I'm quite fond of them indeed. But let me know what you think. Have you read this book, or have you watched videos or even read about the Dyatlov Pass incident by yourself? What do you think happened to them? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And there's also a movie called Devil's Pass, I think, which came out in like 2014 or something like that, which unfortunately tries to throw all the theories together as an explanation, which didn't quite work. So I wasn't really a fan of that movie. Did a bit of a disservice, if I'm being honest. But overall, this is a mystery that will stick with me, and chances are it will stick with you too. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Thanks very much, and see you on the next one. Bye.